Greetings. Welcome to the Road Cook. Today we're going to take a look at deli type pressed meats. Now, mostly we're going to be looking at technique. You can use any kind of meat you want for this. Chicken, beef, pork, doesn't matter. In this case, I have a pork tenderloin, a rather lean cut of meat. So along the way, we'll be introducing more fat to it. Your fat ratio should be about 15 to 20%. So for this 5.5 pound pork loin, we'll be adding almost a pound of fat. But with that comes a little bit of guesswork. If it looks too fatty, it probably is. It's just a reference point. All right, what we need to do is we need to introduce a nitrate to this. What the nitrate will do is help to break the tissues down, open the pores so flavors and spices can merge with it, and it will begin a process known as emulsification. This is part of what binds the pressed sausage together, like you would see in a chopped ham or something like that. So what's a nitrate? A nitrate's a different kind of salt. Salts and sugars, especially in America, are probably the most two abused ingredients and a big part of health issues. I'm going to show you how to make this thing in a healthy manner. So there's basically three ways that you can put a nitrate into this. You can inject it with salt water, and I'm sure you've seen hams in the stores where it says and water added. That's what they're talking about. They take salt water, they inject it into the meat, begins the emulsification process, boom, there's your nitrate. Another nitrate, if you want to get really healthy, is celery water. Celery is a fantastic nitrate. What I would recommend is getting celery. It takes a fair amount. You probably want to take a bundle, chop it into manageable pieces, put it in a sealed container, and freeze it for a couple days. After you freeze it, take it out and run it through your food processor. Or you can do it the other way around. You can run it through your food processor if it's easier, then put it in a sealed container and freeze it. When it freezes, as you might know, vegetables get mushy. Alright? So you take the frozen celery, you thaw it, you put it in a strainer and just press it. That's all you've got to do is press it through a strainer, and you're going to have celery juice. And you can take that celery juice and inject it here. Me, I'm a little bit more country. The third nitrate, my personal favorite, is good old cold beer. Doesn't even have to be cold. I just like the way it says it. Where I come from, cold beer is one word. You know, cold beer. In this case, it's just good old-fashioned Lone Star. It does not matter what your beer is, unless you want a sweetened pressed meat. There's a stage in here where you add sugar. I don't. If I do, it's brown sugar or molasses or honey, usually honey, and it's very, very little. Sugars, like carbs, if they're not burned off, they're going to build fats. If you want a sweeter pressed ham or pressed whatever, say you want to do a turkey, I would inject it with a dark beer, especially a stout or a porter, something that's dark, rich, and sweet. And that way you get your sweetness without the refined sugars. If you are insistent on sugars, I would avoid the refined and work more with like honeys. And let's hope my injector's in a good mood today. Woo, there we go. These are messy toys. Alright, and then all you want to do is just inject the meat. Try to get to the core and work outward. It's quite amazing how much you can inject into these things. And if you notice, it's already sitting on plastic wrap. What we will do is we're going to take this after it's injected, we're going to wrap it in the plastic wrap, and then we're going to vacuum seal it. The reason you wrap it in the plastic wrap is if you take, and anybody with a vacuum sealer may know, you take that wet meat and you try to vacuum seal it, you're going to suck half that moisture into the machine. Just want a nice even amount. As I said, what this is going to do, it's going to sit in the fridge now for about 48 hours. And during that time, that beer, and the salts and the nitrates and the beer, will be breaking down the tissues, beginning an emulsification process, basically tenderizing. In a nutshell, we're going to tenderize this thing over about 48 hours. This is an internal marinade. Now, can you add things to your marinade, to your injection, to your nitrate? Absolutely. Never be shy. One of the things that we really like, especially with poultry, is I will take the beer and I'll mix it with Frank's hot sauce. I'm originally from Buffalo, so I know a little thing or two about chicken wings. And Frank's is the original hot sauce. And although there's, whoops, talking too much, my hose fell out. Yeah, you can use any kind of hot sauce you want. My point is that you can add whatever you want to your injection. Just a word of warning, depending on what kind of injector you're using, a syringe type or this hose feed, make sure that you don't have like particulate. I tried to put a rub into a beer and send it through this thing to inject some roast beef. And oh, what a mess I made. So whatever you inject, make sure that it's liquefied. And that's about all that needs. And as you can see, I went through maybe half of the beer in there. Rest is for me. All right. Moving right along. No, it's only my first drink. Gloves. Use them. Why? Because they help keep the mess down. They help keep things sanitary. What kind? I prefer nitrile. Why? Because latex can cause cross-contamination issues. Do you have to? Absolutely not. You do whatever makes you happy. I just think it makes life a lot easier. Okay, so we have our pork loin wrapped. And I can see I'll be sanitizing my counter today. Now we're going to vacuum seal it. You don't have to vacuum seal it. It makes it better. The vacuum sealing compresses it. It forces those nitrates to work a little quicker, maybe a little bit more even. Do you have to? No. You can take this puppy just like this and toss it in the reefer for 2 days. That's fine. I happen to have a vacuum sealer, so I take advantage of the situation. Well, that's going to need a lot better. And I always measure these things short, so wish me well. Then what we're going to do after 48 hours is we will trim the fat, take extra fat, weigh everything, chop it all up, then we're going to grind it. Now when we grind it, you can leave parts of it in little chunks. And what this is going to do is that gives you that presentation in the pressed meat. But we'll go over that when we come back in a couple days. For now, that is about all we got. What other ingredients will you need are just basics. If you have a ham press container, that's lovely. If you don't, a bread pan works fine. I actually made the bag too long. First time for everything. Also a good idea to keep track of things. In this case, throw a date on it. Matter of fact, I don't even know what day it is. I'll do that later. There we go. Okay, in addition to this, like I said, sugars if you want, we're going to need starch. The starch is a binder. It also creates a slurry effect which causes any juices in here to turn to a gravy state. What we're going to do in this case is very similar to a Spam. So, and you don't have to go in that direction. You can use potato starch, you can use corn starch. There's other things that you can do. We'll go over that later. But in any case, you'll need some kind of a starch and ice water. And that's really about it. So I will see everybody in about 48 hours. Greetings. Welcome back. It's been 48 hours and I've pulled the pork loin, gave it a rinse, cut it in half. So you can see it's beautiful. It's nice, it's tender. You can already see how that meat is starting to work together. Before we get into that, looking back over the film from the other day, I realized I might have misled a little bit. You do not need to inject it with nitrates. It's an easy, quick way out, but it's not necessary. What I promote here is a healthier style of simple cooking. If you don't have the injection stuff, don't worry about it. You may have seen in other videos about working with meats and grinding meats, everybody's big on this pink curing salt, curing aid. To me, that's just another chemical. I don't want it. What you can use instead, though, is celery seed. You don't have to inject it. You chop your meat up, you mix your celery seed in, pretty much about a teaspoon per pound is what I recommend. And in that way, you don't have to go through the injection process. That's what I was going to say. Oh, the cornstarch, or in this case, potato starch. Potato starch also is not necessary. You don't have to make a slurry. If you're not going to make a slurry and you want a solid piece of meat after it's made into deli meat, you need to grind it really, really fine. Many people run it through a food processor to get it that fine. You need at least that to adhere everything together. So if you're not going to use the slurry, you can have chunks, but have at least, say, about a quarter to a third of it ground into a fine mush like in a food processor, and that will glue everything together. All right, so whenever you're working with meats and a grinder, freeze everything for about 45 minutes. The colder the meat, the better. In this case, it's not frozen, but it's emulsified. It's already working. It'll be fine. What the cold meat does, amongst other things, is it goes through the grinder better. And when it grinds, you'll see that it's nice, beautiful, even pieces when the meat is good and cold. Also, just like running ice through a dish disposal, ice and cold matter helps to keep the blades clean and sharp. All right, so we have our pork loin. In addition to that, I cut up 1 pound of pork belly. This is green pork belly or raw. Doesn't have to be. You want a little smoked flavor in here, get some smoked bacon. That's fine. You can throw some liquid smoke in the mix. Whatever makes you happy. This kind of stuff is only limited to your imagination. All right, so let's go ahead and get this diced up. Well, small enough to go through the meat grinder. And this is probably the part of the video where I'll just speed along through it. So I'm going to stop talking for a minute. Actually, that's not taking too long. I might leave that in there. A word about salts. Go to any deli, any store. Look at a can of Spam. Look at a ham, a turkey, anything you want. Look at the salt content. It's disgusting. I think some of the, even the ones that are marked low salt have like 200 milligrams or 12% or something like that. I am working with a little over 6 pounds of meat, and I have about 30 grams of salt. Works out to a little less than a quarter cup. That's what I have right here. And I recommend Celtic sea salt. You can get it online. This stuff is incredible. Also the best salt in the world for fermenting vegetables, sauerkraut, things like that. We will be getting to that down the road. This amount of salt for this amount of meat is about 1.5%. That is all you need, along with the nitrate. And the nitrate, as you've seen, is pretty low too. If you're using the celery seed, as I said, it's a teaspoon per pound. So this would be about 2 tablespoons or 1 ounce, more or less. You don't need much. We put way, way too much salt into our food. We eat way too many carbs. Another good thing about doing this process, other than keeping it more natural, is that you control your fat content. The fat content on this is only about 15%. Not perfect. You can lean it down more if you want. My family originally comes from Poland and Germany. I kind of like a little fat. But still, it's not like the decadent fats that you find out there, the high carbs, the chemistry, the crap. Don't want it. Got no time for it. And as you saw, even though this pork belly constitutes fat, it's also flavor. And you can see it's not all fat. There's, it's bacon. Okay. So we have that. Now, the next cheat. Most people will take this and grind it up, and then they'll mix their slurry together and add their slurry to it. I'm a little old school and a little backwards. I don't do it like that. Okay. So I've got my measured salt, about 30 grams for this amount of meat, which is a little under a quarter cup. It's better to weigh your salts if you can. The way I understand it, the crystals are different size. They fit into the measuring cup differently. To measure it like this, you're going to not be accurate. But then again, it ain't rocket science. Okay. So my salt is in there. In addition to my salt, I want a quarter cup of potato starch, preferably potato starch. You can use cornstarch. You can use flour if you have to. If you want to, whatever turns you on. This potato starch is homemade. If anybody is interested, let me know, and I'll do something on potato starches or starches in general. Just going to mix that in there. As long as your medium is cold, your starches will blend, slurry, break down. We have water. We have 1 cup of water that's cold in the fridge. This recipe, more or less, will be added to the video. Clean as you go. Put your toys away. And again, in this one, we're leaving the sugars out. Now, we're doing basically a Spam. So Spam stands for spiced ham. Well, the basic ingredient, it has the nitrates, the salts, it has the sugar, it has the starch. It doesn't have any spices. What are we going to do for spices? Well, Polish German background, we got to have garlic. What I've got is clove garlic. What it did, in order to peel the garlic the best way, there's a million different ways of peeling garlic. I've seen them roll around in jars. Looks really great. I've never been able to get it to work. Basically, you take the clove, you smash it slightly with your knife. The stem end that looks like a root, you cut part way through that. Don't cut all the way through that. Excuse me. And you take that and you snap that off, and that skin will just come right off with it. So these are already peeled. I'm not going to dice them or do anything fancy with them. I'm going to run them right through the grinder. That's what it does. It grinds. Okay, and I decided, just because I want to, I'm going to do an old school 3-pepper. So we got black, white, and cayenne. Cayenne is my flavor emulsifier, or, come on brain, my flavor enhancer. Doesn't take much. White pepper is very strong. It doesn't take much. Black pepper is the curse of peppers. It don't take much. I know everybody is nuts about black pepper, but you need to understand something. Black pepper gets hotter and stronger the longer you cook it. That's why it's generally used as a condiment. But also, black pepper is the most aggressive on the stomach lining. Too much black pepper and you will eat a hole through your stomach lining. I go very easy on the black pepper. I usually put it in late in the recipe. In this particular situation, I'm only going to use a ½ teaspoon. It's not that big a deal. So, ½ teaspoon of each. And here again, feel free to improvise. Use any kind of spice you like. You can go Caribbean with ginger and clove and things like that. You can go to the Med and put in corianders and, ooh, that's strong. Curry type stuff. Turmeric. That's what the old brain was trying to think of. Yeah. Be creative. Be original. Just stay away from the sugar. And this, in this case, I mean, we're talking about a ½ teaspoon of each and 6 little cloves of garlic. It's not going to make this over the top. It's just going to give it a little bit of flavor. You want, when you eat something, you want that aftertaste to go, what in the world was that? I want more. And that's generally the way we try to do things around here. Forgot where my toys go. Alright. Okay. So that's pretty much everything in there except for the water to make the slurry work and the garlic. So we mix all this together. Keep them gloves going. I don't like gooey hams. And a long time in the cooking world, 40 years now, I don't want to be stopping all the time and changing, washing my hands and stuff. I'd rather just swap gloves out. But don't let your gloves take over. Don't become complacent. I've seen a lot of cooks, they keep their gloves on all day long, and in their mind their hands are clean because their gloves are on. Doesn't work that way. Alright. In a perfect world, I would cover this and let it sit for a few hours in the fridge, but it ain't a perfect world. So moving right along. Here again, my bowl's been in the freezer. All my tools have been in the freezer. You see, I love my cheat sheets too. I got my cheat sheets right here on my mixer for my bread making and my meat making. Okay. So, get this going. And that's probably very noisy. So what we'll do is we'll probably speed through this part. But just to show you what's going on here. Get her grinding. Huh. Well, that ain't right, is it? Oh, there you are. It's got a little tab on it because I got it back against the counter. I couldn't see it. Almost went for a ride. Okay, so my meat's going through, and now I'm just going to intermittently throw in my garlic cloves. Matter of fact, I'll just dump them up in here and slide them in as they get to it. Nothing to it. I mean, I'm going to mix this up more by hand once it's done. When I add the water and everything, well, just the water. Doesn't take long. Just slice off the rest. What I used to do is go ahead and open up this right now and take what's left in there and put it on there. I stopped doing that because first of all, there's a minuscule amount, and second of all, the nub on the end, that's where all that sinew, grease, and nastiness gathers up. So we're going to just donate this to the Jolly Man. Okay, so all I need now is to add my cold water, which has been sitting in the freezer. I've already got my slurry and all that other stuff in there. What I'm going to do, you see there's just a little bit of residue left in here. So I'm just going to take a disadvantage, turn it into an advantage. Get all that icy goodness out of there. Slurry it around. After all, that's what it is. Add that to the mix. And continue to mix. Alright. That's going to be more better. Oh, I guarantee you that's more better than good. I miss that, man. Okay. Lovely smell to it, too. And you can see, I don't know if you can pick it up on the camera, and I think these gloves are icky enough. Okay, glove removal. Good time for this. I know how to do that. Pinch it. Right there. So you don't get yuck on your hands. Pinch it and kind of roll it under. Alright. Let that hand hold it. Take your thumb underneath, off like that. No yuck, no ick. Ex-paramedic, can't help it. Now, I don't know if you can pick it up on camera, but you see that it's already started to get, for lack of a better term, mushy. That's that ice water. That's that emulsification process. That's what you want. All right. Now we got to cook it. I have a ham press. Consists of a plunger with a spring and a top. In this case, I've got some oven grade bags that I can put in there. And this compresses the product. Okay, you don't need it. Bread pan. Pack it in a bread pan. Put the bread pan into a pan with about a ½ inch of water in it. Bake it in the oven about 350 degrees until the core is about 165 degrees. Take it out. Let it rest on a countertop for about a ½ hour. Cover it with foil or something and put a weight on it. A pan like this, a red brick works really good. Put a red brick on top of that foil. Let it compress for about an hour or two, or even take it like that, put it in the fridge. The next day, turn it out, slice it, you're golden. In this case, we're going to use the hand press. But the same thing, the way the manufacturer recommends using the hand press, put the product in it, close the bag on it. You don't need the bag. You can use this without the bag. Put the product in it, pack it down, then put this on it with the top, compress it, and then put it in boiling water, or not boiling water, about 180, 185 degrees. You want the water hot, but you don't want it boiling. I completely and totally disagree. When I do that by the book, and then you're supposed to take it out and cool it, put it in the fridge. The next day when I take that off, all that jelly, all that niceness is on the top, and what you got on the bottom is a dry squeezed down piece of meat. Ugh. So what we do, put it in here, pack it, even use a spring to compress it, then remove the spring, cook it, rest it for a ½ hour, and then compress it and cool it. All right. So you want to put in a little at a time and pack it down. Oh, it smells so good. A little at a time, pack it down. Some people think chocolate's all about love. Give me garlic any day. Oh, my bad, man. And this thing takes, I guess, if I recall, 2.5 pounds. And this is about 6 pounds. So obviously I'm going to have leftover. Or make more tomorrow, or maybe put some in the bread pan later. This is just basically to show y'all how it works. Okay, that's enough of that for now. Put that in the refrigerator and I'll deal with it later. Uh-oh, who filled up my refrigerator? Oh well, I'll put it back in the freezer. Deal with it later. Okay. Just to keep things neat, I'm going to turn the plastic bag over on the top of it. I'm going to take my spring to compress it. I just want that sucker to be good and snug in there. Okay. Take the spring out, put the top on. So, the top has a cool little hole through the handle in the top for a thermometer. It's really well designed, just bad instructions. Alright, my favorite cheat, because you want your water level fairly high. I use an old coffee pot. Slides in there just great. Get enough water in there to cover it up. Another thing too, it's a good idea to, before you do this, take a little bit, fry it up in a pan and taste it. Make sure you got the spices right. I just want to get through the basics today. Okay, so this is going to take at least a good hour. I say I have a thermometer that I stick through the top after about an hour. They say in the instructions, stick it in there and leave it. I've got too much professional cooking in me, I can't do that. What's really cool about the coffee pot is that I can take it and I can put this in the front here during the heat up process and while it's cooking, and I can maintain my burner smoking. Oh, it's a dirty burner. I'm gonna have to fan it. Okay, so I can take that thermometer and I can put it in the front part of the coffee pot, and I can maintain about 100, 185 degree water temperature until the product's done. So that's really all I want to go through. When it's done in here, I will rest it. Resting is very important. We'll talk more about that later. Resting allows the heat will continue to rise for a short period, and it allows the tissues of the meats to relax. All right. So I'll rest it for about a half hour. I'll put the spring on it. I'll stick it in the refrigerator overnight. Tomorrow I'll pull it out and I'll slice it up or freeze it or do whatever I want with it. And again, it doesn't have to be a ham. It doesn't have to be pork. You can do this with ground up beef. You can do this with chicken, with turkey. I've never tried it with fish, but why not? The chunky part, I didn't have to grind all that pork. I could have cut the pork up a little bit smaller or left it big and ground up the rest, mixed that together, and then you would have had that pressed ham look with like the large pieces in it. You know, any of that works. But that's really all of it for today. Just wanted to show you how that works. Let me know what you think. Let me know what I forgot, what I didn't talk about, what I talked about too much. And we'll catch y'all next time on The Road Cook. Thanks for stopping.